Welcome to part 2 of my NL200 live presentation. But yeah, that's why you have to be super honest about yourself, whether you did make really good plays or the plays were just super easy for you to make, and whether you're running good in that kind of spot and none good or whatever. And some people are gonna go ahead and no, I don't want that spam. That's another MSN spam. That's getting more and more popular. Nope. And it made me lose my idea. Idea. I'm putting some H's where there are no H's and not putting H's where there are H's. It's a tough language to speak correctly, my friends, English. And I'm giving up once again. Just not good spots. But yeah, I just got my idea back. And I just lost it again. Yeah, you have to be honest how well you're playing, and if you're just getting the right spots, or if you really played bad, or like some really bad cards ended up coming for you to try to bluff or whatever. That's stuff that you do have to be honest about yourself. On yourself about that. Whatever. Check. I do go ahead and try to isolate that guy. It does not work, obviously. No big deal. And I'm kind of planning a big multi-street bluff here on that kind of board with my 2 overs. I think he's going to call like 1 or 2 streets with something like a medium pair, and he's likely to give up later in the end. So a good spot for me to go for multi-barrel bluff, especially since I gave up so often so far. Now, pretty much the same spot, same guy, same spot as earlier when we were 150 deep instead of 100, and I'd much rather call here with my 100 because, and that's exactly what I wanted to say, and it's a great example for me. On that kind of board, I'm super happy with like check raising that and then going broke at 100, whereas flopping that kind of stuff at 150 would make my hand much more difficult to play because it's trickier to get it in right away on the flop without any aggressive historic. So I think not being able to like go broke that profitably at 150 and being able to 3-bet pots much more profitably makes it for 3-bet at 150 and a call at 100. Most of the time, of course, I'm not going to do that 100% of the time with those hands, but now I do have to think about that hand. That is a really tricky spot. I could bet, I could check. Those are my 2 options. What I'm going to do with those. I do have a couple of spots, so I'm just going to stop talking for a while and explain them later. Sorry about that. I'm gonna come back on that. Okay, so I'm gonna start with that ace queen. I think both options are fine, but the problem is I don't think he's ever betting like. That's a really bad card. I'm gonna come back on this one later too. Yeah, I don't think he's ever gonna bet for a bluff if I do check. because I'm representing super strong, and I'm like, if I did have a bluff on the flop, I'm keeping up my bluffs 100% of the time there on the turn. And he looks like a guy that is good enough to recognize that kind of stuff. So he could stack off like kind of lighter there. Something like ace-7 is gonna stack up for sure. Maybe king-queen with the king of diamonds is at least gonna call a street, and he's not gonna bet the turn for sure. So like, yeah, king-queen with king or queen-jack with jack of diamonds are like my main targets for a bet there. And I don't think checking accomplishes anything. I don't think he's going for a big bluff there, and I do have to go broke. I think even if I check, and it puts me in a really really bad spot. So I decided that betting was better. This one I called in position, called a flat bet. So far so good, pretty standard. On turn I did think about raising because I think his range. No, not that one. Yeah, his range is pretty likely to be weak on the turn because that's a very good card for him to second barrel. And if he does second barrel all of his draws, he's gonna have a lot of those, a whole lot of those. But by raising, since there are so many draws on that flop, I'm basically representing ace-9 suited, ace-3 suited, and ace-jack. I could get a lot of folds, especially from his like air stuff. From a lot of guys, but not on that board. I don't think. I think he's gonna convince himself to just go broke with basically any ace on that board against an aggressive opponent like me. So that's it. I could let. Now you're saying me like, if he has so much air, not hair. Once again, why didn't you call a turn? And my answer to that is because I don't think it's profitable. I don't think he has like flat out super air, so like in that spot first because he's playing pretty tight pre-flop, and he opened from the gun +1, so that hit quite a lot of his range. And if it doesn't already have me beaten, well, he's very likely to have pretty big draw there. So I don't think calling is profitable. I was debating whether raising was profitable since I already ruled that calling was not. And I'm getting played back, I think, by Johnny Richmond quite a lot there. I'm going to try to watch for that. And since I don't think that raising was profitable, then by elimination, my only option left was a fold. And that's kind of process that you should be doing at pretty much every single street, flop, turn, river, guys. And I think not a lot of guys are doing. Just go over all of your options and try to determine which one is best. And most of the time, this is going to come by elimination, basically. This one's no good, this one's no good, so I'm left with only one option. And I think I played another hand too. In the meanwhile, yeah, that one. I think this is pretty standard. We're 4-way, no reason to bet that flop, standard. I do decide to bet the turn for like protection and slash value that I could get called by like 7s and down. And that kind of fish min raised me. You could be doing some wacky stuff with a lot of stuff, lot of ends there. So I like to call, hoping that he gives up. The truth is I don't have that good of a read of whether he's going to give up or no. But I do think I have really good odds there. There are a lot of draws. And most of the time he's more likely to give up than not, in my opinion. From my experience against this type of player. Of course, they are not all the same, but against this type of player. And when he overshoves, I think he has the goods pretty much always. With that kind of board, he's like, alright, full out, I'm going to shove. Especially when we saw him like overbet 2 pairs earlier. I'm just going to go ahead. Yeah. Well, before I do that, a couple of quick thoughts on the game flow so far. I think I'm getting played back by Johnny Richmond quite a lot right now, but I'm not really seeing that go just because I'm talking and trying to focus on later on past tense and stuff like that. So I'm going to be checking for that. And there, I'm kind of lost with my sizings at 1-2. I'm not used to that limit. I think that's that's pretty fine. I think. Yeah, I think that's on the smaller side of 4-bet. But I think with all the aggression that he showed me, it's a good spot for him to 5-bet me bluff. So it's an easy, very easy 4-bet. Get it in at 150 there with my ace king with the kind of dynamic that we had. I think my sizing was pretty good. And once again, no, I do have enough friends for now. Like 5 is well enough, so I'm gonna skip on that new missing friend. And yeah, I'm gonna pause the video for a couple of seconds. That might sound weird, but I just want to see how long this has been going. I'm gonna try to find if I can find that somewhere. Did I resume that? I really don't know what's happened there, to be honest. I don't know if I paused it or if I resumed it or whatever. So sorry about that, and I did not find it. So yeah, I'm gonna keep on playing, and until I'm just I'm just done with talking and stuff. I'm getting pretty tired, to be honest, but I think I do have some more playing left in my playing bank, even though I haven't won a hand in like 30 minutes now. I think I started sometime around like 1 hour past, so I'm gonna try to play 1 more hour, see what happens. Cal. That really scares me now because I'm not sure if I. No, I think it's running right now. I'm not sure if I'm pausing or resuming my stuff every time I'm clicking on something. But yeah, whatever. Let's focus on the poker at hand. Here I could raise, I could call. I think I'm actually gonna raise with 100, being 100 big blinds deep. I'm really comfortable going broke with that, especially on that board. Actually, I might call sometimes when I do have some like showdown value, or I think some cards are gonna make it. Like most of the time, it's gonna be easy for me to play on later streets, and I think that would be truer on something like a 4, 6, 7 board with my flush draw, where I could call and then like bluff a 4 straight or stuff like that if I miss myself. But on that board first, I think I'm getting barreled off a lot on the turn by like something like 2 overs and a gut shot and stuff like that, and that would put me in a pretty bad spot. Plus, he might go broke with either king queen sometimes that I'm crushing, or like any weaker flush draw, of course, which is true on pretty much any board, so it doesn't apply to board reading. But I think just really good spot. Being deeper would make it trickier too. But 100 big blinds deep, he's gonna go broke for sure with king queen. Not for sure, but a lot of times. So I think raising and going broke is my better option there. Let's just hope Johnny Richmond is not gonna go ahead and do some tricky play out of his blinds again. I'm actually getting some playable hands against him, but nothing too crazy, so it's putting me on a lot of like weakish spot where I look weakish, but I don't have any choice basically, and that is a check call. I don't think I have any other option here. Good spot, I think. Another gun +1. Not much info on a guy, but I do have pretty much a good chunk of info on the rest of the crew. I had very good spot to flat my ace king. I sure am looking to flat ace king in position sometimes at least, and I think that's a good spot with these positions and the way the table is designed. And I'm gonna go ahead and value bet and try to make it look like a cheap steal, and looks like no one is nothing, so that sucks. Well, that sucks. And I do I river a straight 9, 10, jack, queen? Yes, that is indeed a straight. I do think I have to check here because he's been pretty aggressive post 11. I do think he's gonna try to bluff a straight quite some time there, try to make me fold a jack or something like that, or just bluff because it's a 4 straight and he's gonna bluff at it. I don't think I have that much value against anything if I do bet. Maybe a river king sometimes, but yeah, not that impressive. And he's gonna, like I said, try some weird bluffs quite a lot, I think. Actually, betting would have been good too. I think both options are pretty much equivalent. With the info that I have, that I think is aggressive and likely to bluff, I think checking is good. But against a lot of guys, betting would be fine too. Guys that are certainly not gonna bluff there, and I think there are a lot of those guys. Plus, that might be curious and call a smallish bet of like, oh, 12 with any king or any jack, just to see what you have. I think that's pretty much free value that you don't want to pass on, and you want to recognize who are the guys that you can do this stuff and can do other stuff and whatever. Against Crazy Johnny, I pretty much isolate value. Here I just raised bigger pre-flop just because I think it's flat out more value for me. There's more value in raising bigger with that kind of hand, with that deepness. And now I'm going to go ahead and try to represent something big. Something sorry about that. I did not do earlier, and that might give me more credibility now that I'm doing it. I did see that he's leading pretty weak so far after check, like limp. Sorry again. After a limp calling, I'm really sorry about that. And no info there. With no backdoor, I'm just gonna try to check it down. But yeah, he's shown like some weak stuff. Plus, I have a big stack leverage here. I can scare him off like pretty much any middle pair because that bet plus the rest of my stack is so big, so he's gonna fold much more. And I can go ahead and barrel any card over a 10 for the rest of the streets because I do think when he calls me, he's gonna have a 10 quite a lot or some like 8s or 9s. But yeah, any card above a 10 is gonna get me a fold by the river most of the time there. So pretty good spot for me to get myself into a big bluff. Plus I did have a couple of backdoors, so it was just perfect spot, basically. Against Mexicapino, who pretty much just joined the tab. I didn't see anything from him so far. I decided to give up my ace king. Because first, with these positions, I think people are more likely to call pre-flop with like, if he's a regular and thinking player, etc. with like stuff like jacks or queens, because he's under the gun, doesn't want to like go broke with that under the gun pre-flop, which is good thinking most of the time. So he's likely to have some bigger pairs than only the small pairs in his range. So my 3 barrel is not gonna be as profitable as, let's say, if he's like cut off and I'm on the button where he pretty much does not have these big pairs in his range. Plus, I don't even know if he's folding any pair by the river. I just don't have a clue at all on the guy. And I tend to assume that the guys I don't know and I've never seen before and I've never heard of are likely to be pretty bad players. And if I'm against a bad player here, I'm really often going to be able to just check down the hand and win it because it's calling pretty wide pre-flop and does not necessarily have a pair, and he's not going to try to like turn his ace queen or ace jack into a bluff like ever, so I'm pretty comfortable checking that back. I might actually bet against a regular much more there, but because I know that I'm not very often going to be able to check down my ace king, even though it would be good in that kind of spot against a better player. So that kind of gives you a hint on the dynamic of how playing against a good player works and how you should adapt, how you can't basically do exactly what you want to do against a good thinking player, against someone that is going to hand read you well. You can't go ahead and be able to, like I said, make him do exactly what you want him to do. He's going to think about those things and this kind of stuff, and he's going to be the one. If he's better than you, basically, he's often gonna be the one making you do what you want, what he wants you to do, and that sucks for you most of the time. So you have to be honest about yourself, about how well someone's rating you, and how much someone is abusing you, or if he's having good cards and stuff like that. Pretty important to just random thought out of my mind there. Here are my sevens. That's pretty weak. This guy doesn't look like a reg so far. He's been playing pretty much every hand. So I think I'm a bit ahead of his range. And this guy, I pretty much don't have a clue to. I haven't seen him do anything so far. I think that's one of the spots where I could be ahead. I could have the best end, but I'm so not gonna win that pot often. I mean, if this guy is any, like, first he's under gun, so he could have a big end pretty often in his range. And if he does not suck out on me, if he has any clue on what he's doing, he's going to two-barrel the turn against two players who are likely to have, like, medium pocket pairs. If he has high cards, he's going to two-barrel the turn quite a lot. So I don't think calling's profitable, even though I'm beating the two guys a pretty good percentage of time. I'm just, the whole situation, apart from the fact that I might have the best hand, the fact that I do not have initiative, the fact that the guy could be 2-3 barreling me, so I could lose the hand even though I do have the best hand for now, and the fact that any scare card could come, and the fact that I could get sucked out on because my hand is pretty vulnerable. I think all those things account for a pretty easy fold. As for when you only think about how my hand is doing against both people's range there, it would be pretty close, but and might tend to a call actually if you take much more stuff into account, stuff that you do have to take into account, like initiative and other stuff like I talked about. It's a fold there. It's basically a fold. Anyway, this guy's been opening too much. Basically, I'm gonna go ahead and just 3-bet him in position, see what happens. No big deal. And not much, I'm talking a lot, but actually not that many big pots have happened in a while. Here against that bad of a guy, I think I'm just gonna call. I could like min raise to take the initiative. That would be a pretty sexy move. But I expect this guy to go super crazy pre-flop with like even ace queen. So I don't want like min raise and then he puts back at me and I can't play the hand. I'm just gonna call and try to play as many pots as possible that deep against this bad of an opponent. And I think King 7 suited is way enough for me to take a flop and see what happens. Here, I don't think he's shown pretty big propensity to like bluff one street and then give up if he doesn't have anything. So I do think that just calling here is best. As once again, I don't want to raise and then get 3-bet on. And I think he's, like I said, the kind of guy who could go mad with pretty much anything there. So I'm just gonna call, try to spike a club, or hope that he gives up and kind of float. I think it's better than a raise there. And I pretty much do not have the odds ever to call on that turn. Especially since he could like be barreling with like a 10 for like, he doesn't even know if it's value or not. He's just betting a 10 and then he's not ever folding it on the river unless I do river my hand. And if I do river my hand, even for a fish, I don't think it's very well disguised. It's like very poorly disguised actually. So I don't have that much implied odds, even though we're deep. So I'm just gonna fold there. For 6, I decided to call in position being that deep. I'm gonna peel the flop for sure. See what happens. Could turn my hand into a bluff or whatever. Here I'm gonna peel the turn 2. I think I'm well ahead of his range, and I think he's gonna give up a lot, even though I might get sucked out. I think he's gonna give up quite a lot. And I'm gonna call that. And that's pretty much exactly what I was looking for, to turn my hand into a bluff. The 9 got there. I could have king queen. I could have jack 10 a lot. If I start betting pretty hard, he's gonna have to put me on. Like, I'm representing a lot of stuff, so not that he has to put me on strong hands, but I think he will. And I think here I should really well consider calling. he's shown some big bluffs and stuff. And when he goes for pot, I don't think he's doing that with like jack of spades. And I think I've looked really, really weak in the hand. And by me like raising super small pre-flop, that was a pot sweetener actually, in case I do flop set. And then facing like him facing check check and then check again, check call, check like timing, call and turn and check again. And he puts. I think his range is super polarized, and I do have to call. I think. And he has not been, yeah, exactly. He has not been value betting thin on rivers too. I did get that tell from earlier, a couple of hands. One where he had ace 8 and he checked back an 8 river, and another one too. Same kind of hand. So with all those reads that I accumulated, plus how the hand played out, I think that was pretty easy call for me with my pair of threes there. It does suck when I ran into like a pair of eights that just turned his hand into a bluff, but I don't think that's gonna happen very often, because I think his first reflex to that kind of guy is gonna just be to check back that kind of hand. Here super deep, over 300 big blinds deep. I'm still gonna 3-bet that. I don't think this guy is any good for me to like start being really afraid of like having no 3-betting range basically. But yeah, it's just good to squeeze basically, especially with that guy calling. I think it's like the easiest squeeze in the world. I don't have to justify that. What I wanted to say is that against some guys I'm just cutting my 3-bet range to absolutely nothing at all if the guys are really good in 3-bet but in position that deep. But I don't think that applies there, especially with the guy there. And I'm gonna acknowledge some of the congratulations that I'm having for that sexy call with a pair of threes. And now that does give me some info on Johnny Richmond actually. I already knew that he was likely to be a reg, but the way he spoke that sentence, I think he's likely to know me now, or he's just saying that randomly. So, but if he knows me, that changes the dynamic a lot. But he does have like direct position on me on 2 tables, so that kind of sucks. I can't really go ahead and abuse a guy by definition with the position that he has on me on 2 tables. He's gonna be able to pull off pressure on me most of the time, and I have to be really good or catch really good cards or really good boards to put the pressure on him and get that kind of spot. I still don't know for how long that video has been going, but probably gonna stop in like 15 minutes or something like that. I'm getting super tired and I feel like I'm starting to repeat myself right now, as I'm sure I'm talking a lot. And I do have some drunk friends in the background playing pool, and I do have some desire to go play some pool with them and drink a cold one. So this is actually gonna be a two-part video, but I do like those 2-part videos. Just because I suck at making 3 parts, I just get tired and stop making any sense after an hour and a half of footage most of the time. Crazy Johnny once again. That's just not good at all of a hand. But that doesn't mean I don't want to play against Crazy Johnny, so I'm gonna limit that back. I can't like raise for isolation because I just have nothing at all. But still, I am suited and I can flip top pair. So that kind of sucks. But I'm likely to call one and fold on turn, depending on what turn is. But with position, I think that would be pretty weak to just fold a flop with my top pair. And I definitely have to fold to that turn. Pretty standard, I think. Here, standard check. I did what I just remembered one. I'm gonna skip it. Whatever. Sorry. Here I could check raise, but I think check raise pretty much sucks there. I have the best and quite a lot. I'm not going for any value with check raise there, apart from like king, jack of clubs maybe. That's pretty small range. And I could spike pretty big. I just think check calling just miles better than check raising there. It's not value and it's not a bluff, so it sucks. Here, being that deep, I am going to check that back a good percentage of time, and that time is 1. And now this is super tricky. This guy checks, and then I call and I call. The pot is pretty big already, and okay, I do have a couple of spots there. I'm gonna raise that one first. And this pot is pretty big, like I said, and he could have like king jack, jack 10 of clubs, and stuff like that that he elected to check and then raise a bet there. And he could be doing that with some weird. So I don't think I can ever find a fold, and I do have a draw to the absolute nuts. So it's never a bad idea. He's gonna have that kind of stuff quite some time. But just because there are so many much more combo draws that I'm just crushing, absolutely crushing, and I'm not that crushed against a set there because I do have a draw to the absolute nuts. And most of the time I don't expect people to like check on that draw of a board against 2 opponents when the last one is pretty likely to just check back and take a free card, and then a lot of gut shot could get there on the turn or flushes or stuff like that. I just don't expect people to check sets there. He did have one. I don't think his play is good, actually, to be honest, because if he bets, he's getting erased by a lot of combo draws on that kind of board. And checking just flat out sucks, I think. He's going to get a lot of, especially since he doesn't have top set, that leaves more of top pair type of hands in other people's range there, so he could have value from any top pair that could give them like an occasion to pot control if he checks. So all in all, I really dislike his check, but he's certainly got that some kind of time, and there are boards and there are spots where I'm gonna think much more about a fold, and even might find a fold against some opponents who just never ever take weird lines like that as a bluff, and those opponents certainly exist, and they exist a lot. Yeah, they really exist a lot. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That board, that situation, I don't think I could ever find a fold there. So I went broke, and he had it, and I did not check out. Now, going forward, 3 pretty big streets of value there, actually. He's going to call with any, like, jack, queen, stuff like that. I don't think he's even, from what I've seen from this guy, I don't think he's even looking at my bet sizing. So I do think it's kind of a spot where I can go big, 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 and he's going to call me with, like, on the flop and turn, he's certainly going to call me with like jack, queen, king, queen, that kind of stuff. Any like pair plus open-ender with pretty much any amount I bet, just because of the read I think I have that he's not really good, that guy. Against a good guy, that would not be as true. But that's kind of spot where on the river, if he like, we go ahead, 3-bet that one. And call that one was pretty close. I could fold that one too, since he doesn't have 100 big blinds for set mine. But yeah, that's kind of a spot where if I go big, big flop turn, and the river breaks, that's a 2 of hearts, and he checks again, that's really not the kind of spot where, even though I have the nuts, and I talked about it earlier in my video, since he pretty much does not have any, like, quote-unquote nuts and in his range is going to be made of a lot of weakish pair plus draws. It's a spot where I'm going to go for really small value on the river. Let's say the pot is like 80 on the river. I'm going to go ahead and like maybe bet the same bet that I bet on the turn, like 30 something, less than half the pot. just to make him curious with all of his one pair type of hands, which are plenty when he check calls that draw you have board in that type of situation. So very good example of a spot where if you hand read well, you can go ahead and get a lot of value on the river with small bets that you would not ever get with big bets because he pretty much never ever has a really big hand there. Sorry about that. I'm still gonna play a couple of minutes. And now I just missed, I think, a piece of anthology by Mexapino. I did not have that. Okay. He found a way to go broke. Oh my god. Did he really go broke it? Oh my god, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. So yeah, we have a very strong read on that guy now, but he's gone, so it's fucking use. No, he's not gone yet. I'm gonna tag him as big fish first, if that decides to work. What the hell is happening? Thank you. And here I think with his timing on the flop, I don't know the guy obviously, but I think with his timing on the flop and go ahead and 2-barrel. I don't think it's a good spot for a 3-barrel, but I think I'm getting a lot of folds on the turn from any of his mid pairs that he has. Now he called again the turn, and I made it pretty big on purpose for him to fold all of his medium pairs and giving me a better give up on the river, basically, because he's more likely to have an ace when he calls a big bet on the turn, so I'm just going to give up that one. Plus, if he did have some like mid pair, he might have like pair of fives with a flush draw on the turn that got there. It's a small part of his range too for him check calling. His flop call was so fast. I did think he had a 5 or 6 quite some time, pretty often actually, and I do think my 2-barrel was good, but certainly not a good 3-barrel spot, just because when he, like I said, when he calls the turn, yes. An ace more often than not. Here that's it, like jizz spot, that deep with that kind of hand position. I'm just gonna call obviously, and here I think checking is really good. I could bet too. I think checking is pretty good. I'm underrepresenting my hand, which is something that I'm likely to do out of position, that kind of spot, since I'm never ever getting 3 streets of value. Now I'm getting myself into kind of a guessing spot, and it's not looking so good, but I do have a pretty good redraw in case I'm behind, so it's not that big of a deal, just because of the redraw. Here I could have gone ahead and raised that flop, but like if the board then does not come ace high, I think it's pretty good. I'm just gonna come back on this one. I'm just gonna go ahead and value bet this one first, and check back this one actually. Yeah, being that deep, I'm just gonna hope that he was airballing pre-flop and flop. I could be good sometimes. That was not. Kind of sucks. But yeah, I think that deep most of the time when I do flop, pretty good draw, but not great draw in position in 3-bet pot, I'm very likely to raise it, just because raising it here raising my hand puts him in a really, really bad spot, no matter what he has, basically. But that's not as true on that board, because I'm not representing that many value stuff, because he probably does not think that I have aces or kings there ever. Probably thinks I'm forbidding those. Maybe ace king, but people just tend to think that you're forbidding those more often, even though you might not be doing it, people are not gonna ever think you have those hands. And I'm getting raised again, kind of sucks. Just gonna have to give up again. So by raising, and he does have aces, kings, and ace king as a big part of his range, especially when I assume he's gonna have a Here I'm just gonna go super big for value against that guy. Probably not folding ever. Does not look like the type of guy who's folding. Don't fold. Don't make me lie, make Sapino. Of course. That's a pretty tricky board. I could check, but I really don't want to see another card fall. It's probably going broke with pretty much any pair, so I'm gonna try to play it as fast as I can. I'm gonna go ahead and bet 14. But yeah, this one. Just wait a second. I'm kind of losing my idea. I'm getting super tired. Sorry about that. Here it's obviously a super easy shove with what we've seen from this guy. And here I don't think I have any value with that weak of an ace. And he folded super on that board. Yeah, did have some value on the turn, but not on the river. But yeah, coming back on that, no, not that yet, that end. Like I said, his range, if he has any clue what he's doing pre-flop, there is super polarized. And he's gonna have aces, kings a lot, and total airball a lot too. I think by calling, I'm gonna win the pot pretty often, even though I just have 7i for now. I think he's gonna give up some percentage of time. I can turn river pair and try to check it down because he's airballing so much, because I don't think he has like that many jacks or stuff like that, or like ace queen off in his range, just because we're so deep. And he looks like he did not look like a guy who had a clue at the beginning, but now he looks like one. So his range is likely to be that kind of stuff. And now I decided DrGiggy did not work out. No big deal. And like super air on that board, super nuts. So I don't think raising is any good, because I'm gonna get pushed out of such a spot with such good implied odds sometimes. If he has ace king, aces or king, decides to rejam the flop there. So yeah, I think calling was best. And I sure, even if I miss anything, since his range is oh, what a nice river. His range is so much airballs. Like I can go ahead and get away with a small bet on the river with my 7i, and I can rep like ace queen, ace jack, something like that, by taking a call flop, check turn kind of line that is going for pot control that deep. So I think if you just make the board instead of ace king egg there, make it 9 8 5 maybe, and I have like 3 4 of the flush draw, I'm gonna raise that every single time, because my range that he sees is much stronger now, and I can make him fold on that kind of board that I've just described. I'm pretty sure at 300 big blinds deep, I can make him fold aces or kings by the river pretty much every single time, unless the board comes off super shitty or whatever, and he might just even fold them on the flop, because it's just he's just gonna like. No, I just lost my idea because someone laughed here. But yeah, whatever. You probably get the point. I've been talking about this one for too long now, I think. And I did miss a couple of other stuff. He ended up calling me with ace queen, which is super stupid. No, maybe not that stupid, but anyway, doesn't make sense. I did bet that turn very small. I do like that bet, actually. It kind of, especially when you have a board like that, when you could get kind of counterfeited on the river. Here I'm gonna go for one street, hope he has like 200 cards and just gives up no matter how much I bet, and that's exactly what I did. And if I check, I think he's likely to go crazy and like bet weirdly, because he's that fish. So I think betting is super good here, but not for multiple streets because it's a fish. But yeah, betting small here protects my hand and gives me some value against some weird ace-high type hands. Even though he's going to call me pretty often with like 6s to 8s or 9s, and he's going to have those hands quite a lot, I'm buying a cheap river too, so when the river breaks, I can just check back my hand, and I do get some value from weird draws or weird draws or ace high or stuff like that the turn. Now, three-way with that guy pretty much having nothing at all, and that guy pretty much isolating. I think this is a very good flop, plus good spot for me to go ahead and dunk lead. Try to represent like a set flop 2 pairs that I could call because this guy is in, or just like pocket 8s or whatever. I don't think this guy's going to make that many plays if I dunk lead there because we're 3-way. And this guy is just limp calling with pretty much anything, so he's pretty likely to be super weak. Here I could defend with 10-8. I don't advocate that play as a default play here. I don't think it's really good as a default, but I'm going to go ahead and call because I do know that most people have pretty big trouble playing that kind of spot most of the time. So I'm going to try to go ahead and give you an example. Pretty good spot for me to play back at him actually because he's probably thinking I have ace queen, ace jack a lot, and I don't think he thinks that I'm ever gonna float with air, and there are no draws at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and call one and hope the turn goes check check and then the river. I think it's a very good spot for me to float actually. I could have middle pair. The only thing that worries me actually, I don't advocate that kind of play. I'm just trying to get tricky here, and it's not that good. But the only thing that worries me, I think Johnny Richardman looks like a pretty good hand reader, and he is likely to see me on the mid pocket pair that is trying like to bluff me out there. Yeah, he's likely to see me on the mid pocket pair and try to bluff me out on the turn. And if he does that, my flop call is just atrocious, basically. And I just thought about that, and my whole end is basically a pretty big mistake overall, pretty badly played. But I did want to get tricky and give you some weird example of a play, and it did not work out. Now the thing is, even though I think he's pretty full of shit, my risk-reward ratio is pretty bad. I cannot rip anything if I shove. If he has any piece of the board that he's valuing, which is pretty large actually, I'm done. I do like, and I can't check call and then open shove the river. Like both plays are equal actually. I could certainly go ahead and shove the turn. The more I think about it, even though I'm representing kind of nothing, if he has a lot of air, he certainly has to fold. So I do think that I should have shoved the turn in retrospect, the way I've played the end. I pretty much butchered that hand, and I'm getting super tired, to be honest. It just sucked balls. I'm going to go ahead and call once again in off position. Once again, not the best play possible, but I'm trying to find some example of stuff to talk about here, guys. Here I could lead, I could check raise, I could check call. I think I'd rather lead here because I think he's likely to like pot control if he has anything like queens or kings on that kind of board. Most of the time people don't want to face off a check raise that deep, and rightfully so. Kind of sucks that he fold, and I kind of don't want to see him check back there. Just because I do want to play my hand on the flop as possible, because actually I'm not making any sense any longer. Sorry, I'm gonna call 2 streets here, way too many draws, and I'm gonna river a trips, which is pretty much the only card that really had me in that deck. But yeah, way too many draws. I think he's 2 barreling plus giving up the river with. Now I sure am happy that he bets. Could go ahead and shove for value. Most of the time I would probably just call here, but this guy did look me with ace queen. Plus he went so small on the river, I don't think he has a full house ever. So I'm gonna shove for value. Hope he like quote unquote hero calls me with like something like 10s here or ace 9 or stuff like that. And yep, that's pretty good value that I went for. Just because of betting on the river. Against a lot of players, they are likely to have like super polarized range there and not call any shove. And they probably should not call a shove against a good player there, because I'm not representing anything, and nobody bluffs when they're not representing anything unless like given any like further anything. No, that really does not make any sense what I'm saying, but whatever. And Yep. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Here, I'm gonna call, try to set mine. I could 3-bet too. Probably should have 3-bet. This is good hand to 3-bet that deep out of position. Now I'm gonna go for the like kind of same spot as my 4s earlier. Uh, Trying not to get counterfeited, get some value out of ace high or a weird draw, and I get raised and I have to get the fuck out of there. Here I decided to Dunkley. I think Dunkley is very powerful move in that kind of spot when you do call a bet out of position, call a 3-bet out of position in a cutoff versus button war. You have to find your right spot to do it. Here I thought that he would be pretty pissed off. He would think that I would be pretty pissed off against all the time that he's been playbacking me. So I thought he could raise pretty light here, pretty much as a bluff, so I could like bet 3-bet and rake in a nice spot without any showdown. Plus, if he does have like aces or whatever and decides to raise there, I'm still in pretty good shape against anything. And I do want to play my hand as fast as possible. And I think going for a bet 3-bet with these stack sizes is better than like going for a check raise. Because if I go for a check raise and he decides to like call me with kings, and then tells himself most of the time if he's calling with kings, well, I'm gonna call and go broke if no diamond comes on the turn. And most of the time no diamond's gonna come on the turn. I'm gonna be in such a bad spot on the turn if I check raise, and then I have pot size bet left with pretty much no full equity, but I still have to do it, so it sucks. So all in all, I think bet shove was better with these stack sizes. Once again, thinking like one street in advance, thinking of my plan on the turn if the most likely card to hit, which is a break, is to come. What's my best play here? And I think leading just leaves me with a best play. And if a break, like if I lead and he calls and a break comes, I don't think I'm getting any fold, but he could be calling with 4s on the flop. He's definitely calling with any 7 that he was 3-betting in position with, so I can get some nice value out of that too by leading when he calls, or any 4, any ace 4, ace 3 is calling. 5 or 6, I could turn my hand into a bluff too. So it just gives me a lot more options, nice options. Now I'm against 2 huge fishes, and I flop a set, which is absolutely magnificent. This one didn't have anything. I do want to build a pot there by betting something, but I don't want to build too big just because like it's big and it's gonna scare them. But now I just have to call and see the monies come to me, baby. That was just perfect to flop against those 2 guys. Here, top pair, weak kicker, get 2 calls on the flop. I don't think I ever have any value by betting on turn, and I actually think that I'm not good very often here. If I did have ace jack, I would go for another street of value. But against 2 calls, with 4 or 5 getting there, I'm never ever getting any value from worse. Plus, like if they do happen to have like a mid pocket pair, both of them, I will be able to check it down most of the time. And here, very interesting actually, if this guy leads, I would have gone, if this guy was leading pretty weak, I would have gone for a raise bluff, because I think he would have found a fold with like ace jack. Sometimes he's gonna like lead weakish with ace jack there, and I so much don't have a 5 in my range that I do have a 5 sometimes. If that, like if I raise, it's kind of what I was talking about earlier. If I raise, I'm so representing nothing that I'm more likely to have something than nothing. Here, board so dry. The guy calls with really weird stuff. He's likely to have nothing at all. I'm gonna go super small and hope he spaz. And it looks like he's getting spazzy. If I had like aces or kings, I'd be more comfortable flipping that. But now I feel like I just have the nuts against that guy. And I feel like if I kind of click it back, he's going to spaz once again. And if he has a flush draw, I'm in pretty good shape and I don't have any problem going broad there. And now I turn the absolute nuts. You could have flush draw or something like that. Could have an 8. I'm going to go ahead and bet super small again. That's really non-standard, obviously. Yeah, I'm going to explain that a bit more later. just because of how fishy he is. If he has a flush draw, I do have to still make him put some money in the pot. And now I'm gonna go weakish again. If he has an ace, I think he's gonna check back like super quick, like he did with pretty much everything he has so far. If he has a miss flush draw, I could try to represent the ace and like smash shove there. I think 68 pretty much perfect for that. Now, perfect flop for me, of course, on my 4-bet. Just gonna bet because I'm betting with 100% of my air, and I think Johnny Richmond is good enough to know that there. And I think we do have some history. But yeah, I'm gonna come back on Superman God a couple of seconds. I'm just gonna see how this ace king works out. And he times out. Times out, sits out, but pretty standard, not much to say there. But this one, yeah, pretty tricky hand. Against that bad of guy on that flop, I'm just gonna assume I have the nuts on the flop, basically. If he has a 3 good for him, that is not true, and that's not my approach to a lot of flops and a lot of players. But against that type of players, I'm just gonna assume I have the nuts. So with that in mind, my goal here is to get as much value as possible from an 8 or his bluffs. And I think by betting 4, he's the type of guy who's just going to raise an 8 because he has to pair and it's such a weak bet. And if he has nothing at all, then he's going to go ahead and spaz quite a lot too. So, and if he has a flush draw, he's going to raise it for sure too. So I do go ahead and bet 4. He raises me. Like I said, he has an 8 quite often. He has a weird bluff quite often too, but I don't think it's profitable enough for me. Like, it's pretty dangerous to like try and call and then check call, and then might let him catch up with like queen, a king, or an ace, or any spades. I'm gonna be pretty lost. So I'd rather get as much value as possible from now on, especially since I don't think he's keeping up his bluffs on later streets from an 8, and I'm for sure. Really sure that this guy is not folding an 8 if I go ahead and re-raise once again with all this weird sizing that I've been going for. So he calls. Turn is a jack, of course. Here I do think I have to take a stab at this one. I just hope he does not have ace jack or ace queen, which are the 2 hands that are gonna call me. But yeah. Here once again I turn super good card. If I did not turn that full house, I would probably go for a bit of bigger. Let's say turn is 10, I go for a bit of bigger bet just to protect myself a bit more from flushes. But now I 100% like, I'd rather go a bit smaller and make him spaz with something weird sometimes, plus be absolutely sure that he does not ever fold a flush draw there. So I'm going super small, and he calls obviously. And river ace, I could check and like let him bluff, but I think if I go small again, he might call with an 8 once again. And if he does have a flush draw, he's gonna call with his ace high flush draw for sure. That he might check back if I check. Plus, he might shove sometimes if he has a flush draw miss because I'm betting just so weak, so small. So that's pretty much my thinking, and that's all hand reading, and that's all trying to get the most value from specific ends. Even though the guy has super wide range of hands throughout the entire hand, basically, I think I found a way to play optimally against what I want to play against, basically. Play optimally against the hands that are most likely to give me action and that I can get value from or whatever. So this is even easier if you are against someone, just a regular with super standard tag stats, who just turns his hand face up before the river pretty much every single time. So that's pretty much it. Here, while I was talking, I don't dislike my play totally pre-flop and flop, but now I do have to call the turn, and I'm going to be pretty lost on the river, and that's something that I try to not do very often. Try to avoid a lot, actually. I don't know if he's 3-barreling me as bluff. What I remember from him is that queens ends plus the ace queen that he showed me, and he's going pretty small on the river, and he went for that kind of sizing too with his queens earlier when I check shoved him when I hit my trip of eights on the river. So I think it's more likely to be value than bluff. I think for a bluff he would go for like 62, 64 on the river if he's going for 3-barrel there. Plus he bet the turn super quick, so he's likely to just add. It's likely that he just had a super easy decision on the turn, and I'm just gonna go for like maximum value against a king. Guy does not look so good, but yeah. With the speed that he played his turn, looks like to me he had a pretty easy decision, and an easy decision on that board with his range of hands is gonna be an overpair most of the time, or like ace 10 king 10, just a really strong hand. Going for 2 or 3 barrels there is not an easy decision at all, so I expect him to take a bit more time before betting. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much my timing pill that I tend to rely on that kind of spot. And I think it's pretty accurate most of the time. So when the guy bets fast, most of the time he just has one option, one decision, or he wants to get showdown, and that's kind of a spot where I think he just had one option by betting super quick. So I don't think he was going for like. Yep, that's pretty much it. Here we just got a pretty good example of how Johnny Richmond has been trying to bluff us and whatever, but I did decide to check call that one, pretty standard. I think I did miss something. I'm kind of all over the place right now. Sorry guys, seriously, I'm getting super tired, and I'm like looking at hands in like backwards fashion. And actually I'm just talking so badly. I'm sure I'm not gonna be able to explain that turn river bluff correctly. Like super quickly actually, that turn river bluff is that I'm representing an ace here, and the guy with all the gut shots, all the broad ways possible, is gonna call the turn with like king queen king jack, maybe even 10 jack and 10 queen for sure. Might not have an ace, might fold a weaker ace on the river when I bet again, so I certainly have to bet again and go for the bluff there, and I want to get as many folds as possible. I'm probably not bright enough to realize that I'm betting so big, but I don't have many nuts in my range, so my big betting doesn't make any sense, and I wouldn't make that big of a bet against a very good hand reader there. But against that guy, I think the bigger the bet, the more folds I'm going to receive. So I think that was pretty optimal, and it did work. And that's pretty much it. I think I'm going to pretty much end up my session with that. Yep. So all in all, a lot of interesting stuff. I might even have missed some hands. I'm trying to talk about stuff pretty deeply, and I do find it difficult when I'm tabling. So if I missed anything worthy of talking about, just post in threads. Not once again, please, guys, don't post your questions in the like video comment section. It's just pain in the ass for me to answer there. So I'm gonna make a thread for this video once again in the forums. Try to answer there. I'm not gonna play that because I'm too tired. Fuck it. And yeah, I'm gonna answer them. I've not been that active lately on the forums. I have a lot more free time in coming months, so I'm gonna answer for sure. Hope you enjoyed that 2 or 3 part series. I don't know how this is gonna work out. This was Martin Fournier for Blue Fire Poker, NL1-2, lot of action. Whoop, 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 whoop. Bye bye.